Okay. Magicites. What would be the most common thing that people want to know about Magicites? Or learn more about? Be a little more in depth? Like, just which ones should I be farming? Or how inheritance works? I'd rather get to that after, but I suppose... Yeah. Okay. So Beth, which ones to actually use? Well, I'm going to do that first. And then I'll get to inheritance afterwards. For the time being, we only have access to three rarities. 1-star, 2-star, and 3-star. The first two are not worth using. Or leveling, or having... You can have them equipped if you want, but honestly... it's probably just a better idea not to, because they're taking experience away from your 3 stars that are equipped. I can take a look at it, Jimbo. I should have written one of those posts myself. But yeah, it's pretty long. I'm gonna try to explain it in using a little more brevity. Let's look at them by element. Well, not by element, because there's specific Magicites that are better, just simply better than others. And there's 4? I think there's 4, possibly 5. And I talked about them briefly while I was doing the experience dungeons. So, if you look on the screen, anything that is got the little, you know, colored background here, that means something that's accessible to us right now. We don't have access to 4-star Magicites. Those will come on January 31st. That's our expected date. So we're just looking at these basically for now, because it's not worth using 2 or 1 stars. They are just junk. If you would like, if you've got the room, feel free to use them to combine into 3 stars to give them more experience. That's about it. 4-star we're not going to look at, so we're basically just looking at 3 stars. And there is 4, I believe, Magicites that are simply, at the moment, better than anything else. They changed that up a bit when it comes to the 4 stars, but this is for now. And that, right off the bat, we see Mom Bomb, who has Empower Fire and Attack Boon. This is going to be the trend of what Magicites are better than others is Empower plus an offensive boon. So Mom Bomb has Empower Fire and Attack Boon. Ice has Wendigo, which is Empower Ice and Magic Boon. Lightning has Enlil, which is Empower Lightning and Attack Boon. Earth does not have any such thing. Wind has Enkidu, which is Empower Wind and Magic Boon. Water doesn't. Water has Mind Boon on Enki, but you're not going to be using Mind-based White Mages to deal damage on the same team you're empowering Water. So that's not a good combination and not really worth getting some powerful characters for. Holy does, though. Holy has Unicorn, which is Empower Holy and Mind Boon. That's perfect. Those work together. If you would like to farm some unicorns for the eventuality that you have Rem, Arc, or Mimwoo's USBs in the future, then go for it. Hello, Michael. Dark has Phantom, which is Empower Dark and Attack Boon. So that was 4. That was Enlil, Phantom, Mom Bomb, and Wendigo, and 5 if you include Unicorn for Empower Holy and Mind Boon. And that brings us to how you assemble your teams. Now I'm going to switch over to the emulator for a second. And bring up one of my Magicite teams. I'll use Bismarck because that should be the newest. Okay, what you see here is it's against, I'm attacking a lightning vulnerable enemy, right? So what do we want for this? Empower lightning. I'm using a magic based team because of Ash and Desh. I want magic boon. Unfortunately, the lightning magicite that you can get from Hydra that empowers lightning, the best one, one of the 4 we just talked about, is Enlil, which is empower lightning and an attack boon, so it doesn't really work. It's really nice if you have a physically based lightning team to use Enlil with, but my lightning team is made of mages, so I can't do that. So instead, I have to include Wendigos. So you include, I have a couple Wendigos on the team for the level 10 magic boon. And from there, that's where I build the rest of my stuff. One is Enlil for the Empower Lightning. It stinks. It's what makes a Magicite deck like this inefficient, but you have to do it because it is the ideal. Because I lose all this attack boon, it means nothing, and I lose these Empower Ices, those don't mean anything. And you know what? I selected this team because I thought that would be the most recent and it would make the most sense, but it actually doesn't. I have no idea what my Bismarck is here. What you want to do is use 2, unless you match up perfectly. Like if I had a Mage Ice team, for instance, using 3 Wendigos makes a lot of sense on that team. But on this team, I have a Mage Lightning team, so I want to use 2 Empower Thunder or Empower Lightnings and 2 Magic Boons. Why in the world I have Bismarck here instead of a second Enlil, I have no idea. Because here's the last part of assembling a team like this is you need to choose a Magicite with a good Magicite Ultra skill. And on this team, I have Empower Lightning coming from my Magicite, but the problem is that Magicite doesn't actually give me anything useful out of the passives. Is an element boon better or the offense stronger or the same? Well, they're percentage based, so you know, I would say it would depend on the team, but I think because of the way stats work, and that stats have a soft cap, but damage increase doesn't, I would say Empower Element is better. And more important, if you have to choose between the 2. So, since I've decided to use an Imperil for my primary Magicite, but doesn't have useful passives, what I should be doing here is using Empower, and Magic. That's it. That's the long and short of it and how to create this kind of team. Now I'm going to fix that mistake. Well, yeah, I'm going to fix that, but I'm going to show you an alternate way to make a team like this. Enlil is also has a Magicite Ultra skill, and it's not bad. Deal 4 magic lightning attacks to all targets and temporarily raise the water resistance of all allies. That is good against Bismarck. It's not offensive based, but it is good. And I think I found out why I made the team like I did now. Or made the Magicite. My Magicite Lightning team does good damage thanks to Shulk. Shulk really enables that team to put out a lot of damage. So I may not necessarily need the Imperil. And if I don't need the Imperil, and the team, because it uses Aphmau as its healer, is actually kind of risky. I take a lot of damage and a lot of runs die to just getting blasted out of the water, literally, by Bismarck. So for this kind of specific team, one that has good offense but bad defense, maybe it's not such a bad idea to use Enlil as my primary Magicite instead of an Imperil. And that opens up a slot. Because now I have my 2 Empower Lightnings in the primary slot and 1 in the secondary, and I have an empty spot here. And that's why Bismarck was here. Because Bismarck is the best defensive Magicite against Bismarck. You know, go figure. Because of Dampen Water and Resistance Boon. But it's mostly the Dampen Water. So a fully leveled up Bismarck has a Dampen Water of 10%, which is good. You only want one of those. Stacking 2 of them doesn't really work. But it's also... Dampens are definitely less effective to a team's overall strength than Empowers. So you do this when you have nothing else to use. And this is one of those cases. Because I'm using a magic-based lightning team, it doesn't make a lot of sense to use another Enlil, a third Enlil. So the best thing I can do is just throw in a Bismarck instead. Now, if I was using a physically based lightning team, God, that changes everything. Well, right away, we get rid of the Wendigos because they're pointless. Oh. Well, I have not farmed up another Enlil, so I'm going to use Humbaba as a placeholder, okay? Now, Humbaba isn't bad, actually. Oh, that's why I haven't farmed up another Enlil. Because Humbaba is also Empower Lightning and adds Precise Strikes. Perfect. Because that's another thing that increases the effectiveness of physical teams. So, say in another situation, you're facing Sea Lion. Sea Lion is vulnerable to fire damage. Mom Bomb is Empower Fire and Attack Boon. So it makes sense. In your head, it's not. Well, I'll show you that later. It makes sense to use 3 of them because getting, even in the reduced effectiveness of a third Magicite, God, I forgot to go into that. The reason why you don't stack 1,000,000 of a Magicite is because there's diminishing returns on the benefits that they provide. So it doesn't make sense to use a third one unless you're getting the benefit of both the Empower and the Boon. And in this case, it actually makes sense to switch over to using a Humbaba as your third Empower, because you're getting a benefit from the Empower, your third Empower, and you're getting full benefit because it's your only Precise Strikes. Full benefit of Precise Strikes. So that would be better than the third in line of an Attack Boon. Is there anybody have any questions about that? So when the game processes your Magicite stack, it just lines them up. Okay, you have 3 Empower Lightning, so the first Empower Lightning is 10%. The next Empower Lightning is 5%. The third Empower Lightning is 2.5%. Your first Attack Boon, 10%. Second Attack Boon, 5%. But instead of having a 2.5% Attack Boon on top of, or instead I use Precise Strikes, which is the first of its kind, which means it works at full effectiveness. Precise Strike is not that good, and that's why you're using it in the last slot. Even a 5% attack boon is more useful than your first Precise Strikes. So that's why it would take the third place on the chain. I'm not sure what you mean by that, Asher. Alright, so starting at Albedo, he says, is the element boon... Oh, so that was already answered. Also, 4 or even 3 copies is a bit too much. Yes, I agree. 3 is only in very specific situations where you get full effectiveness out of the third one. You could use 3 Enlils instead of Humbaba, and that'd be fine. For a physical lightning team. I didn't really understand Asherlock's request. How are elemental resist handles? How do they stack with accessories? Good question. I know they do stack, though. I don't know the exact calculations. So if you're using a physical lightning team, you've got your 3 offensive Magicite. What do you do from here, you know? Well, I think first of all, you'd add it in a Bismarck. And then you just get cute. Humbaba is Empower Lightning Precise Strikes. You could use another Humbaba for more Precise Strikes, which is, it increases the crit chance of the party. Or you use the other secondary physical team Magicite in Salamander. I mean, now we're really running on fumes here, trying to look for stuff to use in these last slots. Because using more Enlils is... You've run into so much diminishing returns that it barely does anything at all. That's why Bismarck is your best defensive, and Salamander has Deadly Strikes, which increases the crit hit damage of all allies. I think if your team doesn't have any real crit chance inherent to it at all, I'd probably just use another Humbaba. Because adding crit damage to the team is not that useful if you're not critting. And one Humbaba with its one Precise Strikes is not going to give you enough crit chance for it to matter. So why not even get a little tiny percentage out of Empower Lightning and add on some more Precise Strikes. And that's why you see me making a second Humbaba here. Because I think they're actually a useful Magicite. And the Precise Strikes is going to be useful for Inheritance. Oh. I haven't really looked into that, Asher, because it doesn't seem all that relevant. Because it doesn't seem like it changes the way you use your Magicite. It's just like a behind-the-scenes kind of thing. Do you feel like it affects your decision-making in creating, or, choosing which Magicite you use? Salamander is good with Cloud's USB and Orlando's USB. Yeah, I'll actually open that up now. Now you see here, yeah, this is a perfect example of a good deck. We're against Sea Lion, and again, just like Bismarck, the best defensive passive Magicite is the one you're going against. So we're using Sea Lion just like I used Bismarck in the last deck. And we're using 3 Mom Bombs. What's great about Mom Bomb is that not only is Mom Bomb the ideal Empower Fire and Attack boon for a physical fire team, but Mom Bomb is also the Imperil Magicite Ultra skill. It's a great Magicite. What's up, Keeper Hyde? So from then on, it's Sea Lion for a primary defensive, and then I put in Humbaba as a crit increase. Now, what's a team that doesn't have access to one of these Super Magicite? Living Flame. And yeah, it's a mess down here because of it. So Living Flame is fire, so it uses Water Magicite to help you out, right? Well, there is no good Water Magicite. So you just kind of have to use what you can. So we've got an Enki and a Bottom Swell for Empower Water and Mind Boon. So I don't really care that much about the Mind Boon. So we're just using Enki for the Empower Water. And what's Ultra Raging Torrent? Yeah, so not only is there not a good Magicite passive for water, but there's no good Magicite Ultracite. There's no good Magicite Ultra skill that imperils. It's one of the only 2, I think. I believe you don't have one in Holy or in Water. So you're kind of left to fend for yourself after that. I use my 2 Empower Waters. Yeah, Bottom Swell is Spell Ward. Spell Ward is not that good. It's just like, okay, it's there. And because this is a physical team, I want to use 2... I want to use 2 attack boons. So I got Enlil and Mom Bomb. I decided to mix them up purely for leveling purposes, because this is a 91 and this is an 83. Otherwise, it doesn't matter. Just use 2 attack boons. And then in the last slot, just like the other physical team, I throw in a Humbaba for the extra crit rate. Now, I've shown you Humbaba as a secondary physical Magicite. What do Mage teams do when they need a secondary physical or a secondary Magicite? Is Fenrir a good one? It is. Fenrir is a great one because it gets Wendigo. Wendigo is Empower Ice and Magic Boon. Perfect for a Mage Wind team, or a Mage Ice team, which is what I have. So this lines up perfectly with what we've seen before. And we've got Fenrir here. Same thing as the other teams. Fenrir is the defensive passive Magicite you want to use for the team. And then you have your secondary Mage Magicite, which is Wing Raptor. The Fast Act is the best thing that you can use for mages after you've lost effectiveness on your magic boons, which you absolutely do. After 3 Wendigos. So Wing Raptor is your your Magicite of choice after that. And mine's only level 50 because I haven't farmed them up. And there's no fast act here. He doesn't have it unlocked until level, like, 80, I think. Yeah. So, it's just here as a placeholder for when I get my Wing Raptors set up. Dark Mare increases damage. Yes, Dark Mare is another one. He's a very, very special Magicite that you can also use in the same slot as you use Humbaba and Wing Raptor and Salamander. Dark Mare has 3 passives, unlike every other 3-star Magicite that we have access to. It's Empower Dark and Hand of Vengeance and Healing Damper. Healing Damper is what it sounds like. Well, I suppose it sounds like it reduces healing, but it actually reduces healing on you, not the boss. It's supposed to balance out what Hand of Vengeance does, which increases damage dealt by all allies as the remaining HP drops. That's a good effect. Because Magicites do a lot of damage. I don't think there's any Magicite dungeon that I view or that I take part in other than maybe Living Flame, where people aren't, you know, people aren't at full health all the time, so having a good Hand of Vengeance is a good thing. I don't have mine leveled up, so I don't use it. I don't know which is better out of using Dark Mare or Humbaba or Salamander. I do know that using Wing Raptor for that 3% cast speed increase is good for them. And I'd probably use that over Hand of Vengeance. But I'm not sure about Salamander and Humbaba. Shadow Dragon is another interesting one, like Living Flame, right? That's not my Shadow Dragon team. Oh, man. I overwrote my Shadow Dragon team. What an ass, huh? Alright, well, let's make it. Oh no, Onion Knight should have stayed and so should have Aphmau. At least I'm not going to make the same mistake and get rid of Sid Reigns. Okay, so what we use in my Shadow Dragon team. Aphmau, Hope, and Shulk. Alright, so I'll just leave them like that for now. Because right now we'll do the Magicite. So what have I got here? I got a Mage-based Holy team. Holy Magicite. Mist Dragon, Kirin, and Unicorn. Unicorn is awesome. But as we see from Ultra Healing Horn, temporarily grant all allies major regen and a barrier that enables them to avoid one debuff. We see that's not offensive focused. Kirin doesn't have an Ultra attack. Mist Dragon, 4 magically attacks on all targets and temporarily raise the dark resistance of all allies. Also, not an attack-based Magicite, so that gives us a choice. Which one do we use? Unicorn, or do we use Mist Dragon? I personally love Unicorn. It is basically a defensive-focused Magicite Ultra skill, because what Unicorn does is, if you don't have any statuses, it won't cast Asuna, so it uses Kiraja or Kira every turn, which is great. This Shadow Dragon does a lot of damage, and Aphmau has trouble keeping up with it. So having Kiraja and Kira is perfect. So I could use either Unicorn for that defensive Magicite Ultra skill, or I could use Mist Dragon for Mist Dragon's defensive. But the difference between the two is in their passives. Dampen Light, Resistance Boon. And Unicorn has Empower Holy and Mind Boon, both of which are useful here, because I'm using Aphmau. I know it's a little difference, but it's a difference. So Unicorn is our primary Magicite. And from there, we want at least, we want one more Empower Holy. So we use either another Unicorn for Empower Holy Mind Boon, or we use Kirin for Empower Holy Healing Boon. And in this case, because I don't really care that much about the stack of, the stacking of the Mind Boon, because it's not that effective to the party, even though Aphmau makes use of it, I'll elect for another first occurrence of a passive in Healing Boon. So that's our second Magicite. And from here, I'm pretty sure we use Shadow Dragon. Just like those other, you know, Magicites, we use the boss that we're going against as a defensive. And what else can we do from here? Well, it's pretty obvious we haven't buffed our stats yet. So we find our either Enkidu or Wendigo. Those are the Magic Boon Magicites. And we use 2 of them. So, Enkidu, 80 of 99. That's why we're using him. Remember, Magic Boon and Attack Boon are at level 10, even at level 80. So, this is still a fully powered Magicite, just not at the highest level it can be at. And then we throw in a Wendigo. So, 2 Magic Boons, Empower Holy, and a defensive. Because we're forced to use 2 Empower Holies and 2 Magic Boons, instead of putting Shadow Dragon in here, I could use a secondary offensive. And for mages, what is that? Wing Raptor. And honestly, with the way Magicites are like made, you know, you're supposed to deal as much damage as you possibly can. More often than not, you're going to want an offensive here instead of a defensive. So Wing Raptor is probably a better choice. Am I streaming tomorrow? Yes. Tomorrow's Thursday, right? Yeah. Because that's the Final Fantasy XII event, and that's actually a decent banner. And it's being fully unlocked tomorrow, too, so I'll be able to do Sid missions and stuff like that. So now I've created my Magicite deck for this, and I love it. I love using one of no recurrence of Magicite. I won't bother with creating this team because I want to actually get on with talking about Magicites, so we will save this over that unfortunate mishap and work on getting that team back up to speed later. So I feel like that's it. That's all I really needed to say about 3-star Magicite. It's kind of simple creating teams. I think the only little difference would be in cases where you would use Salamander. And that would be if you have a crit buff on the team. Like, well, Salamander is going to be important because there's a pretty big crit buff coming in Onion Knight's USB 2. So, using Salamander for those teams would be better than using Humbaba. So you would move over your secondary physical to Salamander instead. Because what Salamander does is increases the amount of crit damage that you do. And because you have a 50% crit fix on the team for everybody, it makes it inch ahead of Humbaba. So I guess next we talk about inheritance, right? So this is a post by Enlear explaining Magicite inheritance. And I'm probably going to read a lot of this word for word and try to explain it afterwards. Magicite inheritance is a system that provides an alternative way to further boost the Magicite once it has reached level 99. I'm going to call this Magicite the receiver for what concerns this thread. This involves feeding other Magicites, I'll call that fodder, to the receiver in order to grant it additional passives and extra stats. Fodders are consumed in the process, as well as a certain amount of gil. There are no requisites for a Magicite to be used as fodder, but only level 99 Magicites of rarity 3 star and higher can be used as receiver. Sorry, not now, Bubble Bobble. Inheritance has two main aspects: passive inheritance and stat inheritance. Green tea, yes, I will be. And Gutsy, that's exactly what I thought of. Passive inheritance. This is the most relevant feature of the system, and it's fairly simple. Since the introduction of inheritance, Magicites of rarity 3 star and higher have an additional slot among their passives. I'm going to switch over to the emulator for a second, just for a visual representation of that. Magicite effects, that's what it means. These are the passives. So we have 2 right now, but there's going to be an extra slot here. And on 4-star Magicites, they start out with 3 passives and have a 4th slot for inheritance. This blank, initially empty, is called the inheritance slot. After you inherit a Magicite, you're given the possibility to move any of the passives on your fodders to the inheritance slot of the receiver. This way, your receiver will gain an additional passive, which will remain at the same level it used to be on the originary fodder at the moment the inheritance took place. This process isn't definitive. It's always possible to overwrite the passive in your inheritance slot if you decide to inherit more Magicites afterwards. There are some restrictions on how the system can be used. Empower element passives can only be inherited on receivers with the corresponding element. For example, Empower Fire can only be inherited if the receiver is a Fire Magicite. Dampen element passives can only be inherited on receivers with the corresponding element, or the previous one in the elemental wheel. For example, Dampen Fire can only be inherited if the receiver is a Fire or Water Magicite. Both Holy and Dark Magicites can inherit the respective Dampen passives. Oh, shoot. Sorry, Solus. So, passive inheritance is what's important here. Stat is not really. So, we're going to stick to passive inheritance. You just get an extra slot. And what makes it... If you feel like this is too complicated and not worth really diving into and spending a bunch of time on, don't worry about it now. Because you can inherit 4-star Magicite into 4-star Magicite. So what we're doing right now is building up our 3-star Magicite just because that's what we're able to. In the future, you're going to want to Initially, when 4-star Magicite appear, we're going to inherit our 3-star into them. But over time, we're going to get more 4-stars and inherit those in instead. Because the 4-star passives are stronger than 3-star passives. And that's thanks again to Enleer. We see that on this list. Unicorn has Empower Holy. That at level 1 is 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, all the way up to level 10. But Seraph, or Siren, starts out at 5 and goes all the way up to 15. So you could theoretically inherit Siren's Empower Holy of 15 into a 4-star Magicite that would be better than Unicorns. So that's why I say don't worry about it too much if it's like too much of a time sink for you, because this is something you can worry about with 4-star instead if you would like. But know that setting up proper inheritance for 4-star Magicites with 3-star is going to give the people that did put the time into it a pretty big advantage. And this is an important thing to notice, is that they did a better job. You know how we have Mom Bomb, Wendigo, and Enlil and Phantom for the 3-star Magicites. They went nuts on creating attack and magic boons for 4-star Magicite. So they're a lot more plentiful. So in Bomb King, Merilith, Empower Fire magic boon, Empower Fire attack boon. Ice, Dullahan, Empower Ice magic, Empower Ice attack. Empower. So you need to understand that you're probably not going to be inheriting empowers and attack boons, because if you create your Magicite decks, you know, properly for 4-star, then you're going to have your proper stacks. You're going to want 3 of these, and then what do you get? You know, what do you want from there? What do you want more for your teams other than Empower and your stat boost of choice? And that gets us to the secondaries. You're going to want defensive things, and you're going to want stuff like Precise Strikes, Deadly Strikes, Fast Act, and Hand of Vengeance. So that's true, Asher. I haven't looked at the abilities of some of the 4-star Magicites. So Lightning has Imperil Lightning, Imperil Wind, Imperil Ice. But you know a crazy thing is that sometimes it's I believe for 4-star Magicites it's not even worth. Yeah, Enkidu is one. You're probably going to want a lot of different Enkidus for different fights. Because each one of them is going to hold a different inheritance passive, right? So that's actually a really good point. Enkidu and Unicorn. Unicorn, I believe, is the most valuable Magicite for their Ultra, because Astra on a Magicite, just having that passive available to every team, I personally think that's gross. And with how important preventing and clearing statuses is in 4-star Magicites, I think a lot of teams are going to forego adding an Imperil as your Ultra and using Unicorn instead. So, I mean, that's a really great point, is that you may be inheriting 4-star Magicites into Unicorns to use on teams. Oh, yeah, you're right. You're right, Rainmaker. Only water gets one? Pearl water 20%, yeah. which is good because current 3-star Magicites don't have a Water Imperil. Yeah, Solus. Kind of like if you've seen it, Vanille's USB 2. I'm guessing that's Elemental Break. But anyway, as far as Imperil and stuff is, or not Imperil, Inheritance is concerned, Inheritance is going to be very important for your primary Magicites, because you're going to be carrying some interesting stuff in your primary slot. Right now, Magicites are very, I do damage, or the status effects aren't that big of a deal, though Unicorn does make everyone's life easier on Fenrir for sure. So inheriting to your primary Magicites is going to be important. So what Magicites, and why is this important to us now, even though this is not in the game? Because it's a good idea to get some of these Magicites to level 99, so you're ready to inherit their stuff to new Magicites. And which ones would I recommend? Well, I'd recommend getting Unicorns. I'd recommend getting Enkidus because they make good primary Magicites. And as far as inherit, like, the fodder is concerned, I would look towards Fast Act, Precise Strikes, Deadly Strikes, and Hand of Vengeance. Fenrir is annoying. That's probably another reason, or something I'm thankful for having Shulk for, is Shulk probably makes my Fenrir attempt do enough damage where I can use Unicorn as my Magicite, allowing me to dodge slows. That is true, Rainmaker. We're getting it much sooner, 2 months earlier in our life cycle. We're getting 4-star Magicite. Solus with the reply of the century. Seraph is interesting. Cause status chance minus 10% for 15 seconds and restores HP 82 to all allies. That's an interesting Magicite. I wonder if that 10% is relevant enough. And I wonder if it stacks with Affliction Break. So what are in my opinion important 4-star Magicites? Well, that's going to be an interesting discussion because I haven't really looked at them very much. I mean, as evidenced by me initially thinking that Debuff Ice was Imperil, which doesn't make any sense because this is Unleers and I know Imperil means Imperil. Well, let's see if I can figure it out just by looking at them. Firemane causes poison and grants medium resist ice to all allies. It sounds useful. Bomb King, 5 group attacks and grants minor buff fire to all allies. That sounds useful. And Merilith is 6 single attacks and causes medium debuff ice. Is it just... I wonder if it's based upon their abilities. Yeah, that's a big difference between the two. Firemane is Dampen Blizzard, while Merilith is Empower Fire. So, choose your poison, I guess. Where Bomb King is just all in, Empower, Magic Boon, and Minor Buff Fire. It's just take it down to Chinatown. What's Minor Buff Fire? It can clear the frozen status. Increases fire damage dealt by 10% cumulable. Ooh. Well, cumulable doesn't feel like it does a whole lot. When you have no other way to provide the status to yourself. So do I want 10% more damage, or do I want medium debuff ice or medium resist ice? The resist is a 20% resistance. The debuff is reduced damage dealt by 20%. It sounds like debuff is more useful. So, that's nice, isn't it? Merilith the Magicite is Empower Fire, Attack Boon, and is your debuffer. That sounds like a pretty good Magicite to me. As one of your primaries. So if you're not using a defensive, like, Unicorn or something, this would be a great Magicite versus the Ice Magicite. So let's look at some special Magicite, because I honestly, from the sounds of it, debuff element sounds like a good effect. So what's up with the special ones? Grants Windstone Skin Magicite 30% to all allies. Oh, is that like Golem? And his shield? His water shield thing? I don't like that. I feel like the debuff would be better. I mean, that's 15 seconds of 20% damage reduction over something that can... a stone skin that, one, if it doesn't get wiped out, it stops you from gaining soul break points. And two, it's going to get wiped out in one attack. Or two, at most. So that's... Sorry, Krista, but you stink. Well, it sounds like it does. I don't know. So here's our special for Lightning. We got Mimic Queen. Grants Water Blink 1 to all allies. Oh, we have versions of that Magicite right now. Again, give me medium debuff water. The only way that this would be good is if you could time it properly to blink something from the water Magicite that you know, is really debilitating, or a special attack. Earth Magicites don't have anything special. Medium resists, medium debuff, and minor buff. So I'm Catastrophe. Wow, that's an awesome Magicite name. Sounds like Empower Earth, Attack Boon. Catastrophe is a pretty good Magicite. Wind. Oh, we got two special ones here. Grants haste to all allies. What does Wind use against? Earth. Does the Earth Magicite slow? So, Sylph has a Medica attached, but Tiamat has minor buff Wind. Wow. So you're either going all in, or you're clearing a slow status with Silver Dragon. This doesn't seem... Sylph doesn't seem like a very good one. Alright, you know what? I'm just gonna open up. I might as well be looking at these right now, right? Oh man, I need to keep this link around. It's a very important link. Right, that's the thing about Enkidu. And the thing about Enkidu is I almost always prefer to use Unicorn instead. Chance to paralyze, 21% chance to slow. So, yeah, that's what that Magicite's intended for. I don't know. If you're going to give me a 21% chance to... Yeah, you know what? It's Area of Effect. It's Piercing. God, that's a huge attack. Yeah, you know what? I think I'm bringing Affliction Break and Unicorn to this fight. Next up, we have Water, medium debuff Fire. So the first one's usually the Dampen. Yeah. So our debuff Fire is on a Dampen this time. Buff Water and Imperil Water. Oh, that's nothing special there. Depends on your situation. What do you need? More attack or more defense? Now, Seraph, I don't know, minus 10% status chance. It really depends on how that's calculated. Did someone, did someone talk about that? Because if this is status chance minus 10% additive, then that's good. Because that's technically, you know, 11% chance to slow, but for some reason, I think that's a multiplicative, which would make this a 19% chance to slow instead of 21. And then there's a matter of it stacking with Affliction Break, which is a multiplicative 50%, reducing the chance to slow to 10.5%. So if it's multiplicative 10%, then it's basically useless. Cody Games, thank you very much for that follow. Debuff Dark. Sounds like the key. What's Hand of Vigor? That's new. You think so, Rain? I thought that problem was fixed. Dark doesn't have a magic boon. It really hammering home that they want you to go physical holy, huh? Empower dark, or sorry, physical dark. Oh, because they don't want you going. Magical dark. Well, anyway, Raymaker, it's not as bad because of inheritance. In those cases, just inherit a magic boon onto the relevant Magicites. No magic on Holy either. It's attack and mind only. Inheritance. Get your Wendigos ready. Though they're probably not going to release Dark and Holy for the same thing that they did for the 3-star Dark and Holy. But then in this case, it's Empower Magic and attack. Empower Magic and attack. Empower Magic and attack. Same. 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 The only difference is if you need to use your primary Magicite needs to be the Dampen. Or your primary Magicite, like you're using a Mage team and you want to use Merilith as your primary. Then I would inherit magic onto it. Hand of Vigor, you do more damage scaling up with the amount of HP you have. That sounds good. Come on, Will. There's also hope. And Yuna. Yuna gets a USB too. That turns her into a Holy Summoner. Alright, is there any questions? What's nice about this is you feel, if you don't understand it and you feel like you're behind, you don't have to, as long as you level up the Magicites that you should be using in the current Magicite dungeons. Because those are all the good ones to inherit from. The Fodder. Good attack boons, magic boons, Humbaba, Salamander, Wind Raptor. For their you know, secondary, like, damage drive. What in the hell? There, fast acts, or fast act, precise strikes, deadly strikes. If you've got them ready to go, then you should be ready to go to inherit from. Fast Act is not complete garbage. It is on a physical team, but not on a magical team. No, it doesn't buff speed. It buffs cast speed. Yeah, Shimra. Let me open up the relevant. It is really small, but that's all mages have. Okay, it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad, but mages don't have anything else to use. Other situational, this is just someone that did a lot of calculations on this stuff. Fast Act is not as good as you might think. It is not good, and 3% doesn't sound that good. However, for mage teams that are over soft cap, it may be worth bringing a single Fast Act level 5 since it gives a 2% DPS boost. That is because there's nothing else for them to do. Physical teams have precise strikes and deadly strikes, but mage teams don't have something to enhance with a passive other than magic boon. And if magic boon is, you know, you're down to your third instance of it, then it's not. This is going to do more than magic boon does. Wow, damage drive. Wow. I can't even put that on my team. Hand of Vigor sounds really nice, though. Oh, maybe it doesn't. Divided by 10,000? That means if you're at full health, it increases your damage by 1%. That's not good. Never mind. Fast Act is better than that. Health Boon is a good passive. What makes healing worse? It sounds like a passive I don't want to have to deal with. Oh, okay. That's at level 1, so it's 10%? That's different. That's actually really good. I thought that was at level 10. It was a 1% damage boost. It was like, nope, not using that. So it's 1% per level. If you're at full health. Yeah, medium debuff dark. It's a good ultra too. Power Holy Attack Boon. Gonna be a lot of Marsh teams out there running 3 Evrays, I think. That HP stock 2000 on Warrior of Light's chain is going to be nice for keeping that Hand of Vigor topped off.